one of the equity funds that Principal has, a total return equity fund right now. That's also a fund that's an equity fund. Is that correct?
Yes, total return equity fund. Yes.
Right. And with the holdings right now, I see that there's a lot of big banks. The majority of the portfolio is there. Is there a certain reason why the outlook is favorable in that direction?
So clearly banks is the backbone of Indonesian equity market, correct? I mean, you can go to every fund manager and you can look at every fund fact sheet, and you look at the top 10 holdings, clearly some of our banks will be there, and it should be there simply because they are very strong and they are doing very well and they are delivering good returns, and that's why they are part of the core portfolio. You understand now? So the good news is the loan growth is growing in an appropriate pace. So the banks are able to lend new money and their business is moving in the right direction. Only thing is, last week we had an additional 25 basis points increase in interest rates. So that means the cost of capital for the banks is increasing, which is not a good news. But having said that, I think there is plenty of buffer in the banking system. And the cost of borrowing is also very, if you look at the loan to deposit ratio, there is still plenty of liquidity in the banking system. I hope it stays that way. And as long as there is plenty of liquidity and the loan to deposit ratio is in an appropriate position, I think banks will be able to generate their so-called interest rate spread and margin, and that should be able to support the banking industry. So banking industry continues to be a core portfolio in any of the Indonesian investment. But the most important thing is the other sectors play a much more bigger role. So right now, I think we feel, in addition to the banking sector, we are also quite positive on few other sectors, especially with what is going on. So we had a Ukraine war that created a significant impact to the commodity prices. Then slowly the supply chains have been restored and we saw the commodities softening and things are getting into a little bit more stability. Now, whatever happening in the Middle East in the last couple of weeks, you understand now, once again, that is going to create a lot of issues for the oil market. And so if the oil prices shoot up because of Middle East, clearly that is going to support the rest of the commodity as well. So I think we may be tactically overweighting on commodity given the development in Middle East that we are seeing. And we also continue to support consumption. Indonesia, 60% of economy is driven by domestic consumption. That's why we love this country, because we have 280 million population, and so the middle class is emerging, and so there is a lot of story on the local consumption. So we continue to overweight on all the companies and sectors that get supported by the domestic consumption as well.
Right. And for this specific fund, for the total return equity fund, is there a specific strategy, like let's say it's in big valuation or big cap stocks, or is it an all cap fund, or what kind of strategy is put in place?
So this is a big challenge we have in Indonesia, because we have too many fund managers and we have too many funds, and then everything looks the same and people are bored, you understand? So I do know the practical difficulty of the market out there. So that is the reason why the way we are positioning this fund is, in our company, we believe in high conviction. You understand now? So this is not going to be, we are not going to be hugging the benchmark, because I think we have index fund that can do it at a much more cheaper cost. You understand now? So there is no point in active fund hugging a benchmark. So we want to be an active fund manager. Within being an active, we also want to be investing in companies where we have high conviction. All the themes that we believe is going to roll out, we want to put more conviction into that particular play. So I would categorize this particular fund as an all-class high conviction fund. That's how. So it is not specifically restricted to large caps or small caps or medium caps. But actually, we are not that much gung-ho about the small caps simply because of we have a lot of internal requirement on how our stock selection can be. You know, we have what is the minimum market capitalization it should have, and most importantly, how much should be the floating stock in the market, correct? Because that is very, very important to have a genuine valuation, genuine market prices. So we have our own filtering mechanism, but within that filter, we are agnostic. So we will choose based on where our convictions are. And that is why if you look at the performance in the last 6 months, we are consistently not only beating the benchmark, we are able to deliver better returns as well.
I see. Okay. So with it being an all-cap fund, so this means that what's usually the strategy based off of? Is it based on more sector or what's happening geopolitically, or what usually are the considerations behind how the stock picking is done?
So conventionally, in a normal, peaceful time where we can meditate, you know, in a normal period, it will be a combination of top down and bottom up, right? We look at the macro, we look at which sectors is going to do very well, and then we look at from a bottom up which companies are having a very strong balance sheet, earnings growth, as well as potential to do well, and then we narrow down our investment universe. But I think whenever you are in a period of market volatility, that strategy doesn't work. You understand, no? Because it gets, the attention gets skewed by certain themes, you understand now. So whenever we have specific themes that are coming out, you are in a war kind of a situation, you have a Middle East situation, we have an election coming up. So each theme has its own companies that will benefit, companies that will have an impact, correct? So we factor that into consideration, but this is not our normal way of thinking. Our normal way of thinking is basically top down and bottom up and high conviction. But I think right now we need to be a little bit more careful. We need to guide the investment through the right investment theses and take it in the right approach. But the good news is we are not alone, correct? So we have investment professionals in almost 28 countries across the world, if my memory is right. So we have investment team across the world, and we get, so when we talk about US market, because US market plays a very important role right now, given the high inflation and a strong dollar. So we are strong in US, so we get all the knowledge and capabilities from our US counterparts, and rest of the world. Our team has access to the entire talent pool. We exchange notes, and then our team makes their own call when it comes to Indonesia, taking into consideration the entire knowledge and information and capability available. We make a call on what is appropriate for this fund from an Indonesian context, and we manage it and deliver the returns to the customers.
Okay, so I think maybe that's also a unique value proposition as well of being a global asset manager, of where the insight is not just limited to this local environment, but also the global part is taken into consideration as well. I think maybe for our friends who are watching as well, that's something to consider with, because I think with Indonesia, with the developing market, we're kind of also very sensitive to what's happening outside of the country, maybe with like foreign flow and all that kind of thing. So do you think, what's the outlook like with the flow into the equity market from foreign investors, and what kind of role does that play into the outlook for the market?
So right now, when you're getting the kind of yields that you're getting from US Treasury or fixed income instrument, and the kind of volatility that we are seeing, clearly we are seeing a risk of sentiments across the world. You understand now? I'm sure if you go to any banker in Indonesia, he will exactly say that, correct? Nobody wants to add risk to their portfolio, but they wanted to play safe at this particular point in time. And that means clearly we are at a disadvantage. Emerging markets will be at a disadvantage, and Indonesia will be at a disadvantage. You understand now? And that is where the thesis comes in. You need to buy when everybody is, fearful, correct? So this is a great example. Do we have the conviction to invest in these market because the markets are attractive. You understand now? And that is a call that every individual has to make. It is not something that we can recommend to everybody, but that is a conviction that individual has to develop. So common sense says, because Indonesia is doing very well, our companies are doing very well, and valuation looks attractive, it is a good time to buy. So it is a good time to buy, right? So every crisis provides an opportunity. So I'm not asking people to go and take too much of a risk, but wherever you feel comfortable, you should be able to add a calculated position. And in the long run, you look at the subprime crisis. Whoever invested in during the subprime crisis, in 3 to 4 years' time, they did extremely well. Same thing with the Asian financial crisis. Even COVID, right? I mean, we thought the world is coming to an end, but the stock market did extremely well. You know? So I think we need to, we can't be cowboys, but we need to be very careful, and we need to do calculated position, and that helps in the long run to build wealth.
All right. And so I guess lastly with this fund, talking about more of the individual strategy into investing, is this a fund where an investor can do dollar cost averaging, or is it more of a lump sum kind of thing depending on where the market is at, and what kind of time horizon is suited for this specific product?
Yeah. So typically when we promote equity funds, correct? We always promote it only for long-term investors, you know. So we will never promote it to take a speculative position on a short-term basis, because whatever knowledge we have, whatever information access we have, still is not sufficient, correct? Nobody expected what will happen to Middle East in the last 2 weeks, correct? Suddenly out of a blue, you know, oh God, I mean, it happened, correct? So we will never be able to predict, and that is what we need to be very careful, because I know a lot of youngsters are directly into equity markets and they are into trading, which is very nice. I'm very happy about it, but you need to be very careful. If you take a concentrated single stock position, they are very, very risky, correct? So it always makes sense to diversify, invest through a portfolio, correct? That is the reason why the equity fund is a good, appropriate investment solution, because it is being managed by experts, people with the right, qualification, license, experience, etc. So that is the advantage you get. Now, the difference between lump sum investment and regular investment, it is more towards cash flow, availability of your cash flow. And especially under the current volatile condition, we don't recommend lump sum investment, correct? Under the current volatile environment, what you need to do is you need to slowly accumulate and build your position for the right outcomes, you understand? So our recommendation, whenever there is serious volatility in the market, you need to preserve your cash. You need to ensure that your investments are liquid, and then whatever you can keep it away, you need to regularly deploy it and build your portfolio. So my recommendation under the current environment for especially middle class, middle-aged population will be regular savings plan. So don't worry about what is the good news, what is the bad news till the election is over. Keep buying every month, whatever it is, 1 juta, 5 juta, 10 juta, it doesn't matter. Keep accumulating it. And then when the world stabilizes, automatically you get a uplift in return. Because you are investing in quality companies.
Right. Okay. That sounds good. Thank you for the insight. It was very helpful. Semoga konten-konten kita juga helpful for all of you. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.